Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. This story is intended for entertainment purposes only and may contain themes that are unsettling to some audiences. Reader discretion is advised. It was the kind of day where everything felt just a little off. The sky hung heavy with clouds that refused to rain. The wind was strangely warm for autumn, and Alex had taken a turn down a road they didn't remember seeing before. At the end of it was a small antique shop wedged between two shuttered buildings. Its faded wooden sign barely readable. Whispers of the past. Alex wasn't the kind of person who usually stopped for antiques, but something compelled them. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe it was the subtle pull of something else. The bell above the door jingled softly as they stepped inside. The interior was dim and smelled of old wood, aged books, and something metallic. The cluttered space was filled with strange artifacts, portraits with eyes that seemed too real, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a haunted manor. But in the very back, on a dusty shelf beside a broken clock, sat a peculiar object, a small wooden box with intricate carvings and an odd black stone embedded in the lid. Alex couldn't take their eyes off it. They reached for the box, and as soon as their fingers touched it, a chill ran down their spine. For a second, the room seemed quieter, heavier. The ambient creaking of the floorboards and wind outside fell away. From behind a curtain, an old woman appeared. Her eyes were cloudy but sharp. She looked at the object in Alex's hands, then directly at them. "You don't want that," she said. Alex hesitated. "Why not?" "It's not from here," she whispered. "It doesn't belong. And it always brings something with it." Alex gave a nervous laugh. "Isn't that the point of antiques? None of them are from here." But the woman didn't smile. "That one's different." Despite the warning, Alex bought the box. Part of it was defiance. Another part, one they wouldn't admit, was fascination. Something about the object called to them in a way they couldn't explain. And when they handed over the cash, the woman wrapped the box in thick brown paper, muttering words Alex didn't understand under her breath. The drive home felt longer than it should have. The trees lining the road seemed darker, almost leaning inward, like they were watching. Alex shook the feeling and turned on the radio, but all the stations were static. They shrugged it off. It was just an old box. Nothing more. Back at their apartment, they set the box on their coffee table. The apartment itself was modest, a one-bedroom on the second floor of an old brick building with creaky floors and thin walls. They unwrapped the box carefully and stared at it in silence. The carvings looked older up close, almost like symbols or writing that had worn down over centuries. There was no latch, no keyhole, just the stone in the center. Alex touched the stone. It felt warm. That night, as they lay in bed, a sound woke them, a faint creak from the living room. It could have been the old floorboards. Or the neighbors. But the sound repeated. And this time it was followed by a whisper. Not a word. Just a breath. As if someone was standing at the edge of their bed. Alex turned on the lamp. No one was there. They told themselves it was a dream. That maybe the old woman's words had just gotten into their head. That it was just their imagination. But when they got up the next morning, they found the box open. Except they had never opened it. Alex stared at the box, now sitting open on the coffee table. Inside was nothing. No compartments. No hidden drawers. No velvet lining. Just the dark, hollow interior, and that faint scent of burnt wood and metal. The stone in the lid, once warm, was now cold. Dead cold. But what disturbed Alex more wasn't the box itself. It was the simple fact that they hadn't opened it. They were sure of it. They would have remembered, especially with how sealed it had seemed the night before. Shrugging off the unease, Alex closed the box, placed it on a shelf, and went about their day. But things felt different. Their apartment, once quiet and familiar, now carried an unfamiliar tension. Like walking into a room where someone had just been arguing. Only no one was there. That afternoon, while washing dishes, the lights in the kitchen flickered. Just once. Then again. Then completely off for a full second before coming back on. Alex looked up, heart skipping. Power problems in old buildings weren't new to them, but it was the silence afterward that caught their attention. The refrigerator hum had stopped. The wall clock wasn't ticking. Even the background noise from the street below had vanished. It lasted no more than a moment, and when the sounds returned, everything felt off by a half step. like the world had taken a breath and exhaled wrong. That night, Alex dreamed of a hallway. Endless, dark, narrow. Something moved just at the edge of vision, always behind them, never fully seen. They kept walking, turning corners that shouldn't exist, descending stairs that led nowhere. At the end, they saw the box, open, glowing, and pulsing, and a voice whispered from the shadows behind it, "You brought me here." Alex woke up with a gasp, drenched in sweat. They tried to shake it off. Nightmares happened, especially after creepy purchases and weirder old women. But over the next few days, the occurrences escalated. Mirrors fogged without reason. Their phone alarm went off at 3:33 a.m. even when it wasn't set. Objects moved slightly when they turned their back, keys shifted position, drawers cracked open, chairs tilted just enough to be noticed. One evening they caught a glimpse of something in the hallway mirror. A shape. Tall, hunched, almost human, but not quite. When Alex turned around, nothing was there. On the fourth night, Alex's neighbor knocked on the door. Mrs. Tiller, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a sharper memory, looked concerned. "Everything all right in here?" she asked. "Yeah, why?" "I heard talking. Whispering. Around midnight. Thought you might have had company." Alex forced a smile. "Nope. Just me." Mrs. Tiller narrowed her eyes. "Well, I'd keep the noise down. Whatever it is you're doing in there, it doesn't sound right." That night, Alex placed the box in a closet under a pile of books and clothes. Out of sight. Out of mind. They even poured salt around it, not because they believed in that kind of thing, but because part of them suddenly did. It didn't help. At exactly 3:33 a.m., they awoke again. But this time, they weren't alone. From the edge of their bed came a faint creaking. And then breathing. Shallow. Ragged. Like someone or something was crouched just beside them. Alex froze. Eyes wide open, heart pounding in their ears. Slowly, they turned their head. Nothing was there. They turned on the light. The room was empty. But the closet door was ajar. And the box was sitting on their nightstand. By morning, Alex could barely hold themselves together. Their body was present, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping cold coffee, but their mind raced through 1,000 questions. How did the box get out of the closet? Did they sleepwalk? Was someone breaking in? No. None of it made sense. And the more they tried to explain it logically, the more they felt reality slipping around the edges. That day, Alex made a decision. If this object had a history, any kind of origin, they had to know. They had to understand what exactly had entered their life. Their first stop was the antique shop. But when they drove back to the street where they'd found whispers of the past, something was wrong. The shop was gone. The buildings on either side were still there, boarded up and forgotten. But where the antique store had been was now just an empty lot. No rubble. No sign of fire. Nothing. It was like the place had never existed. Alex asked a nearby convenience store clerk if they remembered an antique shop being there. The man looked confused. "Been here 10 years, he said. "Never seen a shop on that corner. Just that empty lot." Alex didn't argue. They just left, even more unsettled. Back at home, they turned to the internet. They typed in every keyword they could think of. Wooden box with black stone, cursed artifact, antique whispers, symbols on old box. After hours of digging, one obscure result caught their eye: a digital archive of a now-defunct newspaper from a small town in Maine. The headline read, "Family of 4 disappears after bringing home strange artifact from estate sale." Dated October 11, 1976, the photo beneath the headline sent chills down Alex's spine. There, on the mantel behind the missing family, sat the box. Same carvings. Same black stone. Same aura of unease that bled from the photograph. Alex read on. The article explained how the Hawthorne family, mother, father, and 2 daughters had recently moved into a farmhouse after purchasing several antiques from a sale in Massachusetts. Neighbors claimed the family changed shortly after, reclusive, paranoid, even violent. Within 2 months, all 4 vanished without a trace. The house was found abandoned, no signs of struggle. Only one item remained in the living room when police arrived. The box. According to the article, authorities placed it into evidence. But a follow-up article from 1977 noted the evidence locker in the county courthouse had burned down in a mysterious overnight fire. Several items were lost, including the box. There were no further mentions. Nothing else in the archives. No forums. No follow-ups. Just silence. Alex sat back, the screen casting a pale glow on their face. Whatever this object was, it had a past. And that past was marked by vanishing families, fires, and eerie disappearances. Still unsettled, Alex took out their phone and snapped a photo of the carvings. They uploaded it to an online symbol recognition tool, hoping to match it to ancient writing systems. The results came back unknown. Closest match, pre-Babylonian glyphs, untranslatable. Further searches led them to an occult message board where one user mentioned a recurring dream linked to a box with a black stone, the same box. The thread ended abruptly. The user's account had been deleted. Alex's hands trembled as they shut the laptop. Something ancient had wormed its way into their life. And it had done so before. But the worst part? It wasn't just about the box anymore. That night, while brushing their teeth, Alex noticed something behind them in the mirror again. A blur. A shape. It didn't move, but it watched. Like it was waiting. And carved into the condensation on the bathroom mirror were 5 words, "You should have left it." Alex stumbled back, heart thudding. When they wiped the mirror, the message disappeared. But they knew. Whatever the box was, whatever it brought, was awake now. And it had no intention of leaving. The apartment no longer felt like Alex's home. It had become a cage, each room a cell, each shadow a threat. The box remained on the nightstand like it belonged there, like it had always been there. No matter where Alex tried to hide it, closets, the trunk of their car, even sealed in a box within a box, it would return. Sometimes it would simply reappear in plain sight. Other times it would be waiting in a new place, closer than before. 3 nights after discovering its history, something changed. The feeling of being watched was no longer just a feeling. It had weight now, pressure on the chest, static in the ears, the certainty that someone else was in the room. Alex had avoided sleep, surviving on caffeine and anxiety. But exhaustion always wins. That night, around 2:30 a.m., they slipped into a shallow, restless sleep. And then they dreamed again. This time the dream was clearer. The hallway was the same, long, narrow, ancient, but this time Alex wasn't alone. Behind them, footsteps echoed. Slow. Measured. Heavy. A shape approached from the darkness, tall, gaunt, with a face made of shadows and shifting ash. Its eyes were hollow, but they bled light, white, piercing light that seemed to burn through the dreamscape. And its voice wasn't a whisper anymore. You opened the door. Alex gasped and woke, only they weren't in bed anymore. They were standing in the hallway outside their room, holding the box in both hands. Eyes wide, heart pounding, they dropped it on the floor and backed away. The box didn't break. Instead, it pulsed just once with a low thump like a heartbeat. That's when the lights flickered again. Not just in the apartment, but outside, the street lamps blinking off one by one like falling dominoes. A sound filled the room, a low, vibrating hum that grew louder until it became a chorus of distorted voices. Whispers layered over screams. Laughter inside sobbing. Familiar voices, too, Alex's parents, an old teacher, even their own voice, all distorted and broken. And then, for the first time, they saw it. Not in a dream. Not in the mirror. Standing at the end of the hallway was the entity. It was humanoid in shape, but wrong, too tall, with limbs that bent in places they shouldn't and skin like cracked obsidian. Its eyes, just like in the dream, burned with white fire. The room grew cold, the air too thick to breathe. Alex tried to scream, but no sound came out. Their body refused to move. The entity raised one hand, long fingers twitching, and Alex felt something inside them twist. Not physically, spiritually. It was like something ancient was digging through their memories, their regrets, their guilt. And it found something. The entity leaned closer, and in a voice made of wind and bone, it said, "You brought me with it. But I came for you." Alex collapsed to the floor, unconscious. When they awoke, it was morning. Sunlight spilled into the apartment and everything looked normal again. The box was back on the nightstand, closed. No signs of struggle. No marks on the floor. But Alex knew better. Something had shifted permanently. Over the next few days, their health began to deteriorate. Their skin turned pale, eyes sunken. They forgot simple things, what day it was, what they just said, how long they'd been standing in the kitchen staring at the box. Their friends noticed too. Sarah, a close friend from college, stopped by and gasped the moment she saw Alex. Are you okay? You look like you haven't slept in weeks." Alex tried to explain, but the words felt distant, like someone else was speaking through them. Sarah stared at the box. "That thing. It's wrong. I don't know why, but I feel sick just looking at it." "I can't get rid of it," Alex whispered. Sarah didn't understand, but she believed something was deeply wrong. She promised to help. To find someone who could deal with this kind of thing. But Alex knew. The entity had revealed itself. And now it had no intention of staying hidden. Desperation clawed at Alex like a rising tide. The sleepless nights, the dreams, the entity, it was all too much. They could feel something inside them fraying, a slow unraveling of their mind and body. The box wasn't just an object anymore. It was a parasite, and it was feeding. Sarah returned the next evening, this time with someone she called a spiritualist. A quiet, older man named Thomas. He wasn't dressed in robes or holding crystals. He looked like a schoolteacher, polite, measured, and skeptical. But the moment he stepped into Alex's apartment, his expression changed. His gaze locked on the box. "You shouldn't have brought that here," he muttered. "I didn't know," Alex replied, voice strained. "I just bought it. It was just an antique." Thomas didn't answer right away. He circled the box slowly, hands hovering over it without touching. The lights flickered again. The room's temperature dropped by several degrees. Sarah shivered. "It's not a box," Thomas finally said. "It's a vessel, a tether. You didn't just bring something back with you. You brought a gateway." "A gateway to what?" "Not a place. A presence." He opened his bag and pulled out a cloth bundle, sage, salt, black candles, and something that looked like a rusted coin. "I'm going to try and sever the link," he said. "I've seen objects like this before, but this one feels older. Stronger." Alex sat on the edge of the couch, trembling. "What happens if you fail?" Thomas didn't answer. He lit the candles in a circle around the box, burned sage, and chanted in a language Alex didn't understand. The box began to rattle, softly at first, then violently. The flame of each candle bent unnaturally, flickering not from wind but from something else. Something that breathed. Thomas gritted his teeth and held up the coin. "I cast you back. I break your tie. You have no name, no place in this world." Returned to the void. The lights exploded. The candles went out. A sudden, unnatural darkness swallowed the room. Sarah screamed. Thomas collapsed, blood dripping from his nose and ears. And the box remained. Unharmed. Quiet. Closed. Alex crawled toward Thomas, shaking him. He stirred slightly but was too weak to speak. When the light finally returned, flickering back into existence like a failing bulb, Thomas looked up at Alex with glassy eyes. "You can't banish it," he whispered. "It's not here. Not entirely. You didn't summon it. You invited it. What do I do then? How do I get rid of it?" His hand weakly pointed to the box. "You don't. You pass it on." Alex recoiled. "What?" "Someone gave it to you. Whether they knew what it was or not. You accepted it and now it's yours. You can't destroy it. You can't hide it. It has to be taken willingly by someone else. Only then will it let you go." "But that means," Alex's voice cracked, "I'd be cursing someone else." Thomas didn't answer. He didn't have to. Over the next few days, Alex tried everything else. They buried the box in the woods. It returned. They left it on a train. It reappeared on their kitchen table. They tossed it in a river weighed down by rocks. That night, it was sitting at the foot of their bed, dripping wet. And each time it returned, the entity's presence grew stronger. The air grew colder. Shadows stretched longer. The whispers were louder. The reflection in the mirror no longer moved in sync with Alex's body. They were running out of time. It had to be passed on. But how? Who could they curse with this thing? A stranger? Someone they hated? Could they live with that? One night, in a moment of dark clarity, Alex walked into a pawn shop. The clerk, a tired-looking man in his 40s, glanced up from his phone. "I'd like to sell this," Alex said, placing the box on the counter. The man looked it over. "Antique?" Alex nodded. "Hand-carved. Old. One of a kind." The man examined it closer, running his fingers along the carvings. "Strange little thing," he said. "I'll give you $20. Alex hesitated, then nodded, and walked away. For the first time in weeks, Alex slept. A deep, dreamless, heavy sleep. When they awoke, sunlight spilled through the windows. No whispers. No cold. No pressure behind the eyes or shadows clinging to the corners of the room. The box was gone. It felt finished. They smiled for the first time in days. Ate breakfast. Took a long shower. Even stepped outside and sat on a bench in the park, just breathing, watching the clouds. It was over. They had passed it on. Yes, it haunted their conscience, knowing someone else now bore that burden, but they had no choice. It was either condemn a stranger or lose themselves completely. Days passed. Then a week. Life began to regain its rhythm. Alex started sleeping regularly again, started working on small projects, even reached out to Sarah to apologize and reconnect. They didn't speak about the box. Ever. And Sarah didn't ask. But a lingering fear always pulsed just beneath Alex's calm. What if it came back? 2 weeks later, a package arrived at Alex's apartment. No return address. No postage stamp. Just a small cardboard box sitting neatly on the welcome mat. They stared at it for a long time. Hands trembling, Alex brought it inside and opened it slowly. Inside, a piece of paper, yellowed and brittle, with a single sentence scrawled in dark ink: "You can't pass on what chooses to stay." Beneath the note was the box. Same carved surface. Same black stone. Still shut but humming with quiet, hateful energy. Alex fell to their knees. It had come back. In the days that followed, things worsened far faster than before. The apartment, once briefly peaceful, became suffocating. Mold crept along the bathroom tiles. Electronics failed randomly. Clocks stopped at 3:17 a.m., the time of the first dream. And the entity was no longer hiding. At night, it stood in the corner of the room. Watching. It didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched. Every time Alex looked away, it was closer. First across the room. Then behind the couch. Then at the foot of the bed. One night, Alex awoke to the feeling of breathing hot, heavy air just inches from their face. When they opened their eyes, the entity's burning gaze stared into theirs, just beyond the edge of the bed. They screamed. But no one heard. Because no one was there anymore. Friends stopped responding to calls. Even Sarah had seemingly disappeared, her number disconnected, her apartment abandoned. It was as if anyone who got too close to Alex was slowly erased. They were truly alone now. Alex started researching again, desperate to find anything new. Any loophole. Any forgotten ritual. But everything led back to the same truth: it chooses when to leave. And for now, it was choosing to stay. One post on a deep forum thread stuck with them: "You think you've passed it on. But it doesn't need a new host. It only needs you to believe you're free so it can sink deeper. The object is a lie. The box isn't cursed, it's bait. You're the offering." They stared at those words long into the night. And when they finally turned off the screen, they saw it again. This time not just in the room, but in them. Their reflection blinked out of sync. Their shadow twisted independently. Their own voice whispered back to them in the wrong tone. The entity wasn't just attached anymore. It had begun to merge. By the next morning, Alex couldn't feel their fingers anymore. Their skin had taken on a faint gray hue. Their eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with black. The voice that came out of their mouth didn't sound like theirs. They tried to scream, but it came out as laughter. Their face twitched. Muscles moved involuntarily. The box sat in their lap. Closed. Pulsing. Waiting. Alex wrote a note. Shaky handwriting. Last attempt. If you find this and the box is near, don't touch it. Don't accept it. Don't even look at it for too long. It doesn't want to be owned. It wants to be invited. Once it's in, you're not you anymore. You're the door. They placed the note in the box. Closed the lid. And waited. Because it always finds its way back. Alex no longer recognized themselves. The mirror was the first thing to lie. It began subtly, delayed movements, a slightly different expression, eyes blinking out of sync. Then it grew bolder. Their reflection would smile when they didn't. Sometimes it didn't move at all. It just stared, with something else behind those eyes. Each day, Alex felt a little more gone. The entity had grown bolder, too. No longer hiding in shadows or dreams. It stood openly now, sometimes beside Alex, sometimes behind them, sometimes in them. It whispered constantly. Nonsense, riddles, sometimes their own name spoken backward. But more often, it said one word: soon. Alex tried to fight it. Rituals, prayers, screaming, even self-inflicted pain to stay awake and present. But nothing worked. The stronger the resistance, the deeper the entity dug its claws in. The box never moved from the nightstand. It just sat there, pulsing slowly, beating like a second heart. One night, the whispers stopped. There was no warning. No cold chill. No flickering lights. Just silence. Alex sat on their bed, sweating, trembling. Waiting. Then the lights blew out. Not flickered, exploded. Sparks rained down. In the dark, the shape came forward, not creeping this time, but striding. The entity was fully formed now. A figure of ash and light and jagged, unnatural limbs. Its presence bent the air around it as though reality was peeling at the seams. Alex stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, but also by acceptance. They knew what was coming. They'd known it for a while. The entity raised one hand and Alex's body rose from the ground, lifted like a puppet by invisible strings. Their arms dangled, head lolling to the side. But their eyes remained open, tears streaming down. You're ready, the entity said, voice like gravel and wind and fire all at once. Alex's mouth opened. But the voice that came out was not theirs. I am. With a sharp snap of energy, the room was flooded with blinding white light. And then nothing. When Alex woke up, it was morning. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The box was gone. The apartment was clean, bright, peaceful. Birds chirped outside the window. The air was warm. Alex sat up, stretched their arms, and smiled. Only it wasn't Alex anymore. They looked at their reflection in the mirror. This time it mirrored them perfectly. But the eyes were wrong, too bright, glowing faintly with that same white light. The entity had finished the possession. There was no struggle left. No conflict. Just one will, one mind inhabiting the body that once belonged to Alex. The transition had taken weeks, maybe longer. But now the process was complete. Alex, the person, was gone. In their place stood the vessel. Over the next few days, they resumed normal life. Spoke to neighbors. Picked up groceries. Returned to work. No one noticed the difference. Not at first. But those who looked too closely would feel uneasy. Like something inside them recoiled when they made eye contact. Like a cold wind brushed past them even indoors. Then people started to disappear. First Sarah. Then the clerk at the pawn shop. Then a man Alex passed on the street. He paused, stared at them too long, then was never seen again. Each time someone vanished, the entity's glow grew slightly stronger. It was feeding now. Expanding. Not content to hide. And yet it remained quiet. Patient. Until one evening, Alex, now fully the entity, sat at a small desk with a fresh box in front of them. Not the original vessel, but a new one. Carved with the same symbols. Painted the same dark black. They placed something inside. A sliver of the original object. Enough to begin again. They closed the lid, wrote a small note, and sealed the package. A gift. Then they walked to the nearest post office. The clerk smiled as they handed it over. Sending a package? Yes, the entity replied through Alex's voice. To someone special. The curse had found its new purpose. Not to be rid of, but to multiply. Miles away, in a quiet suburb on the edge of town, a young woman named Rachel unlocked her mailbox. She wasn't expecting anything. No birthdays, no recent orders, no holidays around the corner. Still, there it was, a plain cardboard package. No label. No name. Just waiting. She hesitated. It felt oddly heavy for its size. Something about it made her stomach churn with a faint, inexplicable dread. But curiosity won. Inside, she found a small black box. Hand-carved. Intricate. Cold to the touch even in the afternoon sun. And a note, a rare antique. One of a kind. Yours now free of charge. Rachel looked around, half expecting someone to be watching. The street was quiet. The sun hung lazily in the sky. Everything was normal. She brought the box inside, placing it gently on the kitchen table. It was beautiful in a strange, ominous way. She examined the carvings, tracing her finger along the odd symbols. Her phone buzzed. Distracted, she left the box behind and went to answer a message. It was a friend asking about dinner plans. She replied, laughed at a meme, and forgot about the package for a while. But the box stayed there, quiet, pulsing in the back of her mind. That night, Rachel dreamed of fire. She stood in a burning forest. The trees weren't trees anymore, they were writhing, clawed limbs. Something was calling her from the darkness. Not with words. With hunger. She awoke with a start, drenched in sweat. The box was sitting on her nightstand. She hadn't moved it there. Over the next few days, Rachel's life slowly began to warp. At first, it was subtle, shadows behaving strangely, lights flickering even with new bulbs, her cat hissing at empty corners. Then it escalated. She began waking up with scratches along her back. Her reflection lagged behind her movements. Her voice echoed slightly in empty rooms. One night, she came home to find her apartment cold despite the heater running. The box was on her bed, open. Inside, a small scrap of paper. You opened the door. Now it knows you. Rachel wanted to throw it out. Burn it. Smash it. But every time she tried, it would reappear. On her desk. In her car. In her bag at work. And the dreams grew worse. She saw a face, blurry and changing, hovering just behind her shoulder. She heard her own voice whispering in reverse. In one dream, she watched herself peel off her skin like a mask to reveal glowing eyes and a grin too wide to be human. She began to unravel. Friends noticed her mood shifts. Coworkers whispered about her sunken eyes, her twitchy movements, her tendency to stare off into nothing. Her apartment grew darker, colder. She stopped answering calls. Locked the doors. Drew the curtains. Alone, she screamed at the box. Begged it to stop. Cried until she passed out. But it only watched. Always watching. One night, as the entity stepped fully into her room, shadowy, sharp, monstrous, Rachel realized the truth. It hadn't come to her. She'd been chosen. Maybe by chance. Maybe by the last victim. Maybe by something older, deeper, something that wanted to keep spreading. She tried to resist. Prayed. Cursed. Pleaded. But just like Alex, she began to disappear. Not all at once. Piece by piece. Until what remained wasn't Rachel anymore. Just a vessel. Somewhere else, another package was being sealed. Another address scrawled in dark ink. Another name selected. The box would travel again. And again. And again. Because the object wasn't cursed. It was a system. A design. A network of possession spreading one victim at a time. Feeding. Growing. Choosing. If a package arrives at your door with no name, no return address, don't open it. Don't even touch it. Because once it sees you, you're next. 40.